All right, so I love to talk about careers first. So you would have somebody who's a modeler who'd model the spaceship, but whether it's in film or commercial or whatever TV, you'd have somebody who's a compositor, and part of the compositor's job is being able to mask 3D objects into a scene. What's You'd also do things like control lighting. So if you go back to this top tutorial here, where I go into modeling, and then this one, we actually tweak the lighting of the ship to match the scene. So definitely go through these. But if you get stuck, what I'm lecturing on now is kind of like a shortened version of just the bullet points on how to get the homework done. Okay. So first things first, um, log into Sakai and go to lessons. And then inside of lessons here, go all the way down to spaceship animation, lesson 04 and compositing. And scroll all the way down to these three scenes. And then this very last one where it says assignment resources, click these three dots and just download this video. I'm going to just throw it on the desktop for the heck of it, just so you have it. Okay. Now, in the video, this first one, I have you convert your personal video, like because the video that you do on your phone is going to be like 4K or more, let's say, maybe even 3K. So I have you guys convert it to 1920 by 1080. I'm not going to do that because I already provided this in-class video for you that's already 1920 by 1080. So that's this video here, man looking around. So go ahead and open up a fresh copy of Blender. And what we're going to do is, and I have another copy open here in case I miss a step or I forget something here. But what I'm going to do is the first thing you want to do is essentially composite the video that you want to animate the 3D model to inside the scene. So let's go ahead and just click on this background here, and that gives us a scene here. And what I want to do is inside of my Blender scene here is I want to look through my camera. So with the camera selected, you can click on it here. I'm going to hit N like Nancy just to open up this, and I'm going to go to view here, and this will give me all of my viewing options. Okay. Now, in order to look through this camera, I'm going to just click the camera icon here. And don't be afraid to interrupt me. So we just have a fresh copy of Blender. I selected the camera, and then I click on this camera icon here, and that lets me see through it. Now, if I scroll my wheel out, I can pan, but I'm not zooming in and out. If I click my wheel, it's not rotating it. So with this clicked on here, we want to go ahead and do, we want to lock our camera. And with that, it turns on camera to view, which we're going to turn off later for a different reason. So now when I scroll my wheel out, you can see I'm actually rotating and I'm moving this camera around. What we want to do is I'm going to, actually, let me just show you an example that I did earlier. Let's see. This is our plate. Did I not? This is what I'm going to do in the class as a demo. Is we're just going to render this out, and then we're going to look at how to mask his shirt out. Okay. In the video, I go into more detail where the spaceship's floating around and the guy's looking at it and all that good stuff. But for now, I just want to touch on the main points so that you have all the skills you need to move forward. So that's what we're going to do right now. So anyway, back in Blender here, I have this camera locked. Now, in order to project my video onto this camera, you want to make sure your camera is selected. And then you want to click on the camera icon down here. And down at the bottom, it says background images. You want to click on background images, turn that on, and hit add image. And then you have an image here, and you have a movie clip. Go ahead and click on movie clip. And then you want to hit open. And I'm just going to navigate to my desktop. You guys really should put this in a folder. With all of your project files, but man looking around plate. And now you can see it's popped into our scene. All right, now, if I scroll my wheel in and out, you can see that it's not updating like with the image, right? And that could cause us problems when we go to animate it. So that's why you want to turn off camera to view here. And now when I scroll my wheel in and out, it's going to lock it in. There's one issue, and this will frustrate you because it frustrated me when I was first learning this, is if you click to rotate, it doesn't rotate. It just it detaches you from the camera. even if you have it locked. So you always have to click this to go back in and see your character. Does anyone not have this? Did anyone not have this to work? Does anyone need me to repeat those steps? Hi, how are you?
Yeah. Hey. Oh, right.
Oh, I was like, uh-oh.
Where is
It's
the
always the
camera?
quiet ones, you know?
Where's the camera view?
Oh, the camera to put this back here. So you want to select your camera and then select the camera down here. Yeah. Okay. Now I can scroll my wheel in and out and it lets me kind of zoom. Now the next thing I want to do is this to me is the view for essentially animating. And what we're going to do is, you know, just kind of well, let's animate this. So I'm going to turn my cube into a sphere. Really, you could leave it as a cube, but just for now, let's go ahead and hit Control and then 2, and that turns my sphere into a ball like that. Just so I have something to fly around that represents somewhat of a round shape, similar to my spaceship. Now I'm going to hit S to scale this up. Then I'm going to hit G and just move it over here. So S scales, and then G moves it around. And actually, let's move it. Let's make it a little smaller because when we go to mask it, it gives us less space. All right, cool. So let's go down here, and we have our timeline here. And what I want to do is, as you can see, as I'm scrolling around, this guy's looking. I want to create an animation that kind of matches, you know, like maybe I'll have the ball fly up here. But remember, if I do G here and I move it outside of here, it's actually outside of the frame. So if you want that, that's cool. So anyway, back to 0. I'm going to hold Alt and press my left mouse, or is it Control? Oh, it's Shift and then my left arrow to go back to 1. And I'm just going to press I in my scene. And what that'll do is down in my timeline here, it'll set a key. So if you don't see that down here, there's a key. I pressed I like ice cream, and that's just setting it on frame 1. So I'm going to go to maybe frame 40, where he's looking up here, and I'm going to hit G, and I'm going to move it up here, and I'm going to press I again. And I'll go down here, like he looks up in the air, and maybe at that moment I have him go down on frame 60. I'm going to hit G, move him down. And honestly, if you want it to auto key, just turn on auto key here. And what that'll do is as you're hitting G, and then you left click and let go, it'll automatically key it. And then, go back here for a second. I'm going to hold Shift and middle mouse click just to pan this. And with my ball selected, maybe on frame 100, I have it zip all the way outside of here. So it's passing through this part here. So on frame 0, it goes up. Frame 40 to 60, I have it go down. And then frame 100, it goes across. If you want to jump between your keyframes, you can hit this little button here, and it'll jump between our keyframes. All right. And the next thing I want to do is I want to mask out his shirt so that I'm marking the area where I don't want the sphere to pass through. So for example, like you could have it fly in the front, and then like in the spaceship video, I have it go up and then fly behind him, you know, so that like it masks out that way. So it's a little bit more involved, but let's kind of look at the masking process. So what I like to do is I like to have my 3D viewport here. And then on the right-hand side, I like to have the area where I'm going to mask. And you'll see why in a second. So I'm going to right-click on where I'm just going to move my cursor over where I'm getting a double arrow. I'm going to right-click and do vertical split. I'm going to move that. Let's try that one more time. Vertical split. I'm going to click it here. And now I have 2 different viewports. I'll pause the video, and then if anyone has questions about that, record. So I have my 3D viewport here, and then what I want to do here is sort of my masking. It depends on what you prefer. Like if you prefer to animate in this viewport and mask in this one. So I could just, we'll split it up. So I'm going to go ahead and hit N to hide. So I'm going to click in this viewport, hit N, click in this one, and hit N. So this will be where I'm actually working on my animation. I'll do it in this view. And then on this one, what I'll do is I'll set this as my masking viewport. The reason why I have 2 different viewports here is because Blender can be annoying, and it's not because it has to be this way because it has so much stuff going on that what we're doing is, like, for example, we're going to break this almost like into a different part of the project. So up here in the top, you'll see this little editor type button here. Go ahead and click on that, and then at the very bottom, go to Movie Clip Editor. So it's just here. Click on Movie Clip Editor, and I want to open the clip that I want to edit. Right. So you'll see there's this little clapboard. Click on that, and then select your character. Just gonna move this over a little bit so we can see this. So now this is all of the features of. Remember, we've kind of done this a little bit with tracking before with the sphere. We've actually been in here before. So what we're going to do is, in our tracking, we're going to go ahead and change this to mask. And I'm going to move this over a little bit. It's a little bit of, give me a little bit of space here. And I'm going to kind of do a little bit of some hotkeys. So what I want to do is, I'm going to look at my 3D viewport here. Do you guys need me a minute to get masking going and separate, or are you guys okay? You okay? Anybody else? Okay. So the way that you mask an area, so I'm going to look here. I'm going to go to 1, and then I'm just kind of watching the way my sphere is moving. And on frame roughly, let's see, this is frame 74. I'm holding shift and middle mouse clicking in here. That's when my character starts passing through the shirt. So I could see that it's roughly the shoulder up here all the way down here across the body, right? So I need to kind of mask this area here. So what I generally do is I create like a really simple mask. And if you are if you love, like if you're a detail-oriented person, like you would make a great compositor because you kind of have to tweak almost frame by frame to make it perfect. So how do we create a mask? Well, the hotkey to do that is it's Control and left click. So I'm going to click here, like inside of here. Oh, sorry, I forgot a crucial step. We never created the mask. So I'm going to expand this out, and I'm going to move this. You see this new button here? I click new here, and this creates the mask. So I'm going to name this Old Guy Mask, even though he's probably my age. Old Guy Mask. And so with that created, it creates a layer. And now I'm going to look at this image here. If you don't see that, you got to kind of move this all the way over. You'll see a new button to click on. Go ahead and click that new button and then type whatever you want. All right, so here, back to what I was saying. Back on 72, you can see there's this. Do you guys need me to pause for a second for you to create the mask? No? Okay. I'm going to hold Control. I'm going to left click. And now it allows me to start drawing out my mask. So I'm going to click here. And, just being rough here, I can see down right below his shirt sleeve here. I'm going to click this. And you don't have to be perfect because you could always Control click on the corner here and add later, add more. So I'm going to hold Control click again, go all the way across the body, Control click, Control click, Control click again, and then hit Alt and C, and that'll close that mask. So Alt and C will close it. So let's do that one more time. Just going to demo that one more time for you. Control click, Control left click, Control left click. And again, I'm just using this as a reference. I'm like, okay, I want to mask the area that the ball is going to pass between his body. And then I'm going to Control click here, Control click here, here. And then once I'm kind of close, I'm going to hit Alt and C, and that'll close it up. And that creates the mask. So when we jump over to the compositing tab, sometimes you have to hit the render button so that it refreshes. I'm going to kind of explain all this in a second. So right now we have a mask, and I'm going to show you how to fix this in a second. But as I start to move my character, notice actually that kind of worked pretty good. Do you see how my ball here, you know what, let me show you. I'll kind of update this on the next step to show you how it works, how to clean this up. So we have our mask going. So let's hook this up so that we can composite the ball, the character, and the mask all into one render so that we can render this out. Okay. Any questions before I move on? Okay. So I'm going to jump over to my compositing tab here. And this is where you take all of the different layers, the 3D models, all of the art, and you sandwich it together. And what you want to do is we want to use nodes to represent all of these different pieces and link them together. So at the top here, go ahead and click on Use Nodes. And the composite node, so this is our render layers node. So what does this mean? Do you see the word scene here? This is referring to this scene here that we created, this 3D scene it's linked to a composite node. The composite node allows us to render it out. If we want to view it here, we want to hit Shift A and just start typing viewer. And when I click in here, it brought up our viewer in the scene, but it didn't let us see what our scene is. So I'm going to grab my image here, and I'm just going to throw it inside the image here. Now, you don't see it here, which is, again, why I said it's kind of annoying that it doesn't update right away. So sometimes you have to go to render and hit render image. And then once it's done rendering, you close it out, you'll see that your sphere is here. And as I kind of cycle through this, like say I go to frame like 20 here, I hit render and I hit F12, you'll see it'll update that image back here. It's kind of an annoying feature inside of Blender. I'm going to pause the video. Okay. Now, we have the viewer and we have the compositor node. We want to go get the video that we're going to layer together, right? So I'm going to hit Shift A and I'm just going to type movie clip. I'm going to click on this. And what I'm going to do is it already has loaded in memory the movie clip, which is the man looking around. So I'm going to click on that. And what I want to do is I want to like how do I say this? This background image here is actually, this gray area here is not real. Well, I'll get into that later. I'll get into the transparency. Not real, but it's actually empty information. The only thing that we're really seeing in our scene is the sphere. So the node you want to use to blend between these two is, I think it's called alpha over. It's this one right here. So what alpha over does is it'll take a video and an animation, or two videos or an image and a video, and it'll allow you to use the alpha to blend between them. So I'm going to grab my image from here. I'm going to plug it into the first node. I'm going to grab my image here, plug it in the second node, and then I'm going to take this output and I'm going to plug it into each one of these. And then I'm going to hit render just so that I have that rendered. Now, this alpha over node isn't, well, I'll pause it and then we'll get into the reason why you're not able to see these two together yet. Okay, now the reason why this gray area is actually covering this guy here is because we didn't tell it that this gray area should be transparent. Believe it or not, when you're making a 3D model, all of that space around it it's just air. It doesn't have anything in there. So you want to make sure that you're on this node right here, the render node, and you want to go down to film, and you just want to check on transparent. And now when I go in and render this again, you could see it registered all of that gray area as transparent. And that's what I was saying. I wish it updated in real time, but you have to keep hitting the render button, right? So now we have that sphere in there. But look what happens, right? So I'm going to right click on this edge again. I'm going to go to vertical split. And I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to change this one to 3D viewport and click my camera. So this will allow me, because like I said, this doesn't update in real time. Actually, let me pause it and let you guys. This one? Oh, 3D, the first option, 3D viewport. And then it's going to look like this. So you want to click camera. All right. So the thing is here, the reason why I did this is because notice as I scroll through here, it doesn't update unless I hit render, which is kind of an annoying feature. I think there's a node in the later version which allows live rendering for compositing, but it's not exactly... there's a way to do it. I know there's a way to do it where it will update, but it's like adding another feature and uploading a tool and all that. So for now, just kind of figure it that way. So what I'm going to do is I want to show you this. If I move my sphere here, right, and I hit render, look what happens. It's covering him. But I wanted, remember I created that mask and I want to include that mask. So what I'm going to do in here is hit Shift A, and I'm just going to type the word mask, and I'm going to bring in my mask node, and I'm just going to put it up here above this. And down here under FAC, this is where we bring our mask in. So I'm going to click on mask, and I'm going to bring it inside of here. The problem is the mask is black, right? When you create a mask, that area, this right here, let me go back to layout. This mask right here is completely black. And so that's why when I go back into compositing here and I hit render, you can see that that sphere is gone, right? If I go back a little bit here and I hit render, you won't see the sphere, but if I go where it's inside of his body, you'll see the sphere. Oh, actually, it's not even allowing that. We need to, in essence, what happens is this area is considered black. We need to invert our mask so that we can see it in our scene. So I'm gonna Shift A and I'm gonna start typing invert color. Oh, no, sorry. Click this little drop here and then select your mask. Now, when I hit render, it's this little drop down here. You'll see the mask. If I hit render image, you'll see the sphere on his body. But the second that my sphere is halfway off of his body where my mask area is, you'll see that it's cut off. And that's not what we want, right? So again, the reason why it's doing that is because when we first drew that mask, by default, it's set to black. And what we want to do is invert that color. So that's why we're going to hit Shift A and then we're going to type invert. And then I'm just going to click on this arrow here. And what it does is it takes the color here and it plugs it inside of there. And then it takes this color and it puts it in FAC. And now when I hit render image, you can see that it's inverted and now it is going behind him. So let me go ahead and pause that and help you guys get caught up on that. So the last step that I want you guys to do is this, right? So I'm looking at, oops. So let's take a quick look at this, right? It actually did a pretty good job, right? So if I move this here and I render this, you can see it actually did a really good job of connecting to his body. But I'm going to go ahead and change my, because we're done here. These are all the nodes you need. We're done with compositing. So I'm going to go back to my layout here, right? And I have my mask here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my mask and figure out a way to tweak it a little bit better. So let's say my sphere is here, right? And actually this doesn't look too bad, but let me go ahead and just render this out. So I'm on frame 87 and I'm just kind of looking at the way that this operates here. So I'm going to go to render and I'm going to hit render image. And it's not perfect. I mean, it does look passable, but do you see this little area here that's green? The problem with that is as my character is moving around, if you look in the mask, do you see how the mask isn't animating with it? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tweak this a little bit. So I'm going to hold control. I'm going to click on this line. I'm going to add one dot there and another dot there. And I'm going to change my timeline here from timeline to dope sheet because I want to be able to see the keyframes. And dope sheet is the only place you could see the keyframe for mask. I'm going to change it from dope sheet here to mask. And you could see right off the bat, like I have, if I select these two keyframes here, they're kind of animating, right? So let's say as this sphere is coming through and it's coming out, I want to make sure that these keyframes, you see how this is all the way out here? I can say, okay, here's frame 70, that looks pretty good, 78. And again, I'm only concerned with the area where it's going to pass through. And I'm like, well, here I want this to be really perfect. And this is what I said, like if you are like a attention to detail person, you can go in here and like you just sort of move this around, and that means you have the heart of a compositor. So I'm just going to kind of tweak these, and I'll show you what's happening here. And I move this around, and then as I'm going back, do you see how these are animating with it? And like, even though the ball isn't there yet, I'll just kind of show you how this works. So it's the same thing here. Like if you really want to tweak these guys so that they're perfect, say that there's other things that are, there's other objects that are going to fly through this guy. So let me add one more here. See how like I'm animating it so it goes with it. And then like on frame 88, I can, and the reason why it's automatically keying it is if I go back to my timeline, I have auto key on here. So if I go to dope sheet again, and I switch this to mask, on frame 88, I could say, you know what, I'm going to move these over. And I actually kind of really enjoy doing this. I don't know. Sometimes I'm just like, it's nice to do mindless stuff like this where you're just kind of tweaking it. But you can see here now my mask follows the body of the character. So I could have other objects. Like say I want to go back in the scene and I duplicate this guy. So let me go back to my timeline. Or actually, I could just probably go back to, let's go to, I'm going to hold shift and push my back arrow here. And I can hit like shift A and I'll add another mesh. I'll add like a, I don't know, a cylinder. And let's see. So I'm going to hit I to key this. And because it's all the same scene. Oh, I'm not in my timeline. Here we go. Let me undo those two keyframes. Okay. So this one's going this way, it moves in, and then this one goes through. And then I could probably say, okay, on frame 80, I'm gonna move this one here, let it hang out for a little bit. Oops. Hit G. And then that one goes through too, and I'll show you the difference. It would be good to really mask both. So like here, it goes through. And so now when I render this, you can see they're both masked nicely. So that's why I'm saying like it's kind of nice to tweak that mask. Last step is rendering. So the way I want you to render this out is change it from PNG to MPEG Movie. And when you throw it up on YouTube, it'll automatically find it. In the TMP folder output here, I'm just going to throw it in videos. I have a folder called masking, animation, VFX, masking. This guy's called Guy, masked, or whatever. We're going to save it. Accept, render, and then render animation. Sorry, the one last thing I want to do is, let me see if I can escape this render. Really, we only need to go about to frame 100. So make sure to set this to 100. And then 105 maybe. And it should update here on your frame range. And then I'll render that animation one more time. And don't worry about this gray, because this is like, that's just, it looks that way.